The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Good evening. This is Melanie Young. Welcome to Fearless, Fabulous You on W4WN, the Women for Women Network, and iHeartRadio. I'm your host, and each week we bring you dynamic, inspiring women who have amazing stories to share and health and wellness experts. I am delighted tonight to have. We're going to go to the dogs tonight, and I'll tell you why. I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with so many Maltese dogs you can't imagine. In fact, there were so many litters in my home that the Chattanooga News Free Press came and did a photograph of Melanie with friends. And I was an only child, and here I was with Mama dog and Papa dog, and then 2 litters of Maltese puppies. And growing up, they were my dog sisters. But I never had my own dog until I was almost 40, and I adopted this amazing little Maltese from Animal Rescue Fund named Chance. I called him Chance because he had a second chance in life, and he was my best friend and my only companion. I was single, and he was my only companion. And when September 11th happened in New York City, where I was living, and the towers fell, it was Chance who I hugged when I needed to feel good. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer many years later, it was Chance and my husband by then who comforted me and made me remember that I was a beautiful, dynamic woman. Chance walked me down the aisle with my dad, and we were very touched with him. And probably one of the most painful experiences in my life was having to let him go. I had been diagnosed with breast cancer and had gone through breast cancer treatment and had found out that Chance also had cancer. And it was very painful for me to have him go through chemotherapy or costly, painful surgeries. So we didn't do anything, and we just let him continue on. And about 2 years after his diagnosis, he was clearly suffering and in pain, and I had to make the anguishing decision to let him go. And I actually document this whole story in my new book, Fearless, Fabulous You, Lessons on Living Life on Your Terms, which came out this past week, about letting go, fear, or fly. And the experience taught me that sometimes you have to let go of your own somewhat selfish reasons for not letting somebody else go because you don't want them to suffer. And in this case, I was told by the doctors, you are keeping your dog alive for yourself and not for him. So in thinking about that and recent stories in the news about Ebola and the virus and how a nurse in Spain had it and her dog was put down because people thought the dog would get Ebola, and then the nurse here in the United States, in Texas, her dog was quarantined. It made me think about taking care of your pets and the importance that the importance a pet has in your life. To me, they're children. And I reached out and did a blog on Huffington Post about how to care for your pets and provide for them when you were no longer capable of it. Unfortunately, my guest, who was supposed to be on the night, Rachel Hirschfeld, couldn't be here to talk about the legalities of providing for your pet. But I also thought about the grieving process you have to go through when you lose a pet or any loved one that is considered a member of your family. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced, thank you, through Facebook, to Philippa Kingsley, who lives in Atlanta and is she's a certified vortex healing divine energy practitioner and spirit medium, and she's a specialist in animal communications. She lived it herself, going through the loss of 2 beloved dogs, as well as her father. Like me, I lost my father around the same time I had cancer, and I lost my dogs. We both share that period of grieving. And she's the author of Rising Above Grief for People and Pets. And talking to her and feeling her energy, I thought she'd be a great guest to have on to talk about what it's like to go through the loss of something or someone you love deeply and how to heal from it. Interestingly enough, she's a Thai-trained chef. So she comes from the chef world before she went into healing. So I want to just have her share about that. But first, let me introduce her officially. Philippa Kingsley, you're in Atlanta, and welcome.
Welcome. Great. It's lovely to be here with you. I feel we are here, even though I'm in Atlanta and you're in New York.
And we're equally cold, apparently.
Yes, we are. I can tell you. That's definitely 20 million layers on here.
Well, you have a very interesting background. As I said, you're a professionally trained chef. You're from the UK. You had what? Tell us a little bit about your own journey to where you are today.
Well, I believe everything happens for a reason. There's no coincidence in anything in life, and everything is what I call divine timing. Everybody goes, what a coincidence, but it's actually timing. When things are meant to happen, they do. You can throw enough mud at the wall, but if something's not meant to be, it won't happen. So it is literally divine timing. I've actually been a Thai chef. I was very connected with Thailand and with Buddhism, and I believe I was Thai in a previous life. It wasn't any coincidence. I didn't grow up with a Thai grandmother. Had a Jewish grandmother, not a Thai grandmother. Anyway, so I had a catering company specializing solely in Thai cuisine and a Thai cooking school. I was totally immersed in it, and I'm a serious foodie, and that hasn't changed. What I eat has changed, but as I say, the food side of it has not.
Okay.
So basically in life you change and grow. And I've got very, very involved with, as I say, with Buddhism for over 10 years, Mahayana Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism, which is, Buddhism from Thailand, the way of the elders. And then vortex healing actually eventually came into my life for me to change. Is there a coincidence? No. So basically at one time, as I said, I was a chef for 20 years, but it's like you change and grow. And it was just, I found it tiring. It was getting very tiring. I totally immerse myself in whatever I do. I believe in it. I don't just do something for the sake of it. I have to believe in something. Has to feel right at a core level. And I was getting more and more physically tired. And so 20 years is particularly quite a long time for doing one thing. And then I was getting more and more immersed in vortex healing. And it had changed a lot of myself, my perception of myself, many, many things. And I started working with vortex healing on people and with pets. I also studied animal communication as well. So I was then trying to do catering, Thai catering, and also healing. So it was a question, it was quite a strain of doing that, quite an effort to do that actually in the end. And it was just, when you don't want to do something, the universe, takes over. And Thai cooking the clients started to sort of dissipate. So that was a sign. I thought, this is it. This is what I'm meant to do. And I totally immersed and put myself into healing full time. And it's been the best thing that I've ever done. Because before I used to heal people through their stomachs, and now I heal their souls, or try to heal their souls and help people. But in life, you have to heal yourself before you can heal anyone else. And that's for anyone or anything, or whatever healing path one is on.
Well, I'm curious. First, I have two questions. First of all, we're going to have you explain vortex healing, but before we get into that, was there something that happened in your life that, I understand. I've been in the public relations industry for 20 years, and I mean, I was a great, and still am a great PR person. Really, people tell me all the time, so I'm validated. But I had cancer. I realized that I was burnt out, and cancer was just the, in your face message said, you're burnt out, you got to change your life. So for me, it was that, and I realized I could not stay in that world. I had to go into a new world. Was there something that happened with you that said, I'm got to transition from being a chef, which we know is very demanding and nurturing and wonderful, but has its challenges, to go into healing? Because that's a big change.
Right. Well, basically, I think what the initial change was when my first dog, Vogie, English Cocker Spaniel, had 2 English Cocker Spaniels, when he passed away in 2004, I was totally, totally devastated. I hadn't experienced grief on that level before, and because I don't have children, you know, and I was in full throttle mummy mode. And I'd given my life, if you like, to Vogie at that time. And then basically losing him and the loss and everything, and the loss of Cosmo, my other English Cocker Spaniel, went through. It was just totally devastating. So it changed my whole mindset. Plus I was working with Vortex Healing as well. Mm-hmm. And all the changes that I was going through with that, shedding the old conditioning, the old mindset, I'll explain that later, yeah. That was what started it. And then eventually in 2009, losing my father and losing Cosmo, it's been a process. Grieving is a process as is on one's own path and one's own journey. And that's, I would say, that's what really changed.
You had Vogue, like Vogue, the magazine.
Like Vogue magazine, yeah.
Right. Did you ever work at Vogue magazine?
I used to work at Vogue in London, actually.
Okay. What were you doing with Vogue in London, by the way?
I did promotions and advertorial.
Okay. So Vogue, and in your book, Rising Above Grief for Healing of People and Pets, you show Vogue. Vogue was very ill, right?
Yeah.
And he died naturally, right?
Yes, he did. Well, he had kidney failure, basically, right. And I had to sort of give him intravenous liquids. That was a whole journey on its own, obviously backwards and forwards to the vet and everything. And yeah, well, as you know, anyone that's been through this realizes that. Until you go through something like this, you just cannot, if you hear it, but you just can't feel it until you actually go through it.
And I agree with you. And then with Cosmo, you made the choice to euthanize him. But I went through that when Chance was ill, and I, having gone through treatment, I just couldn't envision my precious little dog going through it. But I remember there was a point, we were at the Animal Medical Hospital, incredible hospital in New York, and they said, you have to do something. And I called my mom. I was crying. She's like, you need to do what you believe is best for your dog, Chance, because you love him like a child. And I chose to do whatever surgery it took to keep him alive. I don't know if, in hindsight, if it's the best choice or not, but that was where my mind was. But I understand the grief because, like you, Chance was my child. I don't think, it's interesting, my father, like you, died within the same similar time frame that you lost Vogue and Cosmo. My father died after my second cancer surgery, and I have to tell you, I cried harder and longer when Chance died. Maybe it's because I was so prepared for Dad's death. I mean, he was just waiting to die, and there was something about making the decision to end a life that just threw me into a whole nother world.
Right.
Yeah. So you went into healing. And
I went into healing full time, yeah.
Yeah. And what exactly is, there's a lot of different healing processes. What is vortex healing?
Well, I was drawn to vortex healing. There again is no coincidence. It's more than, a healing modality. It's actually a healing art and a path to awakening. And that is what is so powerful and so beautiful about it. It's totally, and what is awakening? That's basically to all that is. It's basically love. And at the end of the day, love is the most important thing of all. I'm not talking about love, that's something else. But love is the most important thing of all. Everything else pales into the background. So this is what it is. It's you're getting rid of all your own stuff, if you like, your own issues. You have to get rid of your own issues before you can even help anyone else or anything else. And the level that it works at is incredibly, incredibly deep. It's not just what I call a spiritual massage, It's basically works at the cellular system, which is where all our stuff is stored. It works at the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and karmic levels, which is powerful. It works with the genetic system, the genetic brain, its fixations. Also, I'm trying to sort of make it easy so that people can understand, easy-ish without getting too esoteric. So people can understand.
Well, why don't we do this? If I were coming to you as a client, because you take clients, right?
Client, I say client, yeah.
What would happen? What would be our first visit? I mean, how would that work?
Okay. what I would do is I would talk to you to find out where you're at. I'd tune into you, and I tune into people when I meet them physically, obviously, and over the phone when I talk to people anyway. It's just energy, because we're all energy. So I would find out what your story is. When I say story, it's the drama. I call it drama, actually. It's story or drama that we all have. What's happening in your life? What's happened? Because most people's issues are fear-based. Whatever the story manifestation is, fear of change, fear of moving forward, or fear, or otherwise, issues of self-worth. Do I love myself? Do I like myself? Do I deserve? Am I good enough? Or often issues of forgiveness, because in life you have to forgive yourself before you can forgive anyone else or anything else. Mm-hmm. So most people's issues, generally, whatever the storyline, falls into those categories often, not always. Obviously, it can be one, it could be a combination. So that's the lesson of what I do. It's changing your perception of you at the core level, working at the cellular system. It's like changing your mindset. You're changing your perception of who you thought you were, basically. And then I would work, and then what I do, once we've worked out what it is and we talk it out, and I talk to you and you talk to me, and we build up a rapport, I then do a healing, which takes about an hour and a quarter, and you're lying on a massage bed, and I'm channeling energy, basically. This vortex healing is not new age. It's been around for over 6,000 years. And as I say, the power that it works, and, from the divine source of the lineage. And whatever it is that you need, to how to help you. And that's the basics of what it does. But because it's going into the cellular system, it's incredibly powerful. It's not just on the surface. And that's how it works. It's not like, we've all been to therapists, or nothing wrong with therapy, not knocking that. But this really, it's not working at the mind, the mental mind, or the ego, because the ego doesn't want people to change. The ego says, well, you've always been like that. Why should we change? And often people have fear of change. They want to change, but it's the fear, and it's fear of letting go. It's literally all about trust at the end of the day. Trusting in who you're meant to be, and to find your spiritual path and your divine purpose of what you're meant to, your life purpose, if you like, for what you're meant to be here for, and what makes your heart sing, what makes you feel good, what you care about, getting rid of the issues, and, family stuff as well, everything like that.
Well, Philippa, how is it different from coaching?
Pardon?
Is it healing? Well, first of all, if I were to come to you, how do you do a certain number of sessions? How many sessions do most of your clients go into?
It could be about 3, could be 4. I can't sort of say it's not, you don't buy sessions of 10 or whatever it is, because it's so powerful. Things move and shift at a really fast pace. And if you really, by the time people often come to me, they've done a lot of healing work, and that's fine, whatever one is drawn to. It shifts the final residue of what's there, the dense stuff that's still there in the whole, as I say, in the system, the whole cellular system. And it works. This is what I use with animals as well, also. I don't put them on massage.
So you went, it's interesting that I think of Dr. Doolittle, he talks to the animals. Again, it was your experience losing Vogie and Cosmo that moved you into animal communications, correct?
Yes, definitely. Because
and who did you study with?
Penelope Smith. She's been she's the most wonderful animal communicator and has been doing this for about 35 years. She's internationally renowned. And I was drawn to take classes with her. So I went to New York, and then also in Prescott, Arizona as well. So that's what I do. But I've been talking to animals before that with Vogie and Cosmo. But I needed to formalize things and learn how to, there are techniques to involve with telepathic communication, which is what animal communication is.
Well, I think I want to focus on animal communications in our second segment, and just talk a little bit more about the grieving process in your book in the first, because I figure we'll do the grieving part in the first part of the show and animal communications in the second, just because it's a little lighter. Your book, Rising Above Grief, a lot of it documents your own personal experiences losing 3 members of your family, Vogie, Cosmo, and your father, and also your mother has Alzheimer's. So it's a lot, and many of us and many of our listeners are dealing with aging parents and aging animals, and you talk about coping. What can you share about that? And helping adjust to this new normal. First, losing someone you love, but also watching someone you love deteriorate, which is equally painful.
Right. There's like a pre-grieving. There's what I call 3 stages, which I wrote about in the book as well. There's the pre-grieving. It's like it's not just a diagnosis, you have a prognosis. And it's like part of you doesn't want to believe it. You know it's going to happen sort of down the road. It could be a year, however many months' time, whatever. You don't quite want to believe it. So there's the pre-grieving that sets in. Then when something actually does happen, it's devastating. It's literally an emotional earthquake, and that's what I call it, totally an emotional earthquake. There's no other word to describe it. And it's like you've joined a club that you didn't want to join. You didn't want to join this club.
No, never.
And your life changes, It's life-changing. There's no other word for it. And then there's the process of grief, the grieving process, and there's no right way or wrong way. It's whatever feels right for you. It's the most important thing, whether you've lost a pet, whether you've lost an animal, or you've lost a family member, whatever it is. It's a process that you have to go through. And a lot of people don't want to think about it or blank it off. But in the end, you have to deal with it. It comes up and hits you. It could be a few months or a few years down the road from that. It's something that you have to deal with, basically. Better to deal with it first than later on and not deal with it. Because I think also in the West, grief is not talked about at all. People sort of give you sympathy up to about the point of, before somebody transitions or passes away, transitions from their physical body or passes away. But then after that, it's like, you're on your own after the person's passed. And so there's different levels and different things that you can do, and you have to nurture yourself, and it's very important. And that's what I did for myself, and I'm sure you did too, and also with the dogs. Also,
I'll be honest with you. I did not allow myself enough time to grieve, and actually, I address that in my new book, Fearless, Fabulous You.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, my father, who I was adored, I was an only child, and I was very close to him. I mean, we were very close. He was given a year to live. He had cancer, he had come back, and he decided to focus on dying and not living. And would call me, every other day. He'd call to remind me he was dying. So I was already pre-grieving. I didn't know the term till you mentioned it, but I was pre-grieving. But it worked me up into a frenzy, so that I think by the time he finally died, I was like, we were all at peace. Because we were all worked into such a frenzy, which is where it was so different with Chance. We were not. But I also lost, I lost a part of my body. I had a double mastectomy. And I, to be very honest, Philippa, did not allow enough time to grieve. And it came back and bit me in the you-know-what years later, because I did not give myself what I consider, and we could talk about this, a healthy grieving period. I just kept doing business as usual. And the reality is, it's not business as usual. And you have to realize that and accept it. And it doesn't mean you're a Debbie Downer or negative. It's just that it's a seismic shift in the landscape of your life, and you have to address it. And in my case, I didn't. So about 2 years after I finished treatment, I went to a profound despair that I had to work myself out of.
Right. No, it's challenging. It's incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
As to how to do it, what to do with it. And everybody deals with it differently. It's important to nurture yourself.
Yes.
And to accept what's happened. Acceptance, it's the mind, it's everything. It stays in the body, it stays in the lungs. Grief is still stuck in the lungs, actually, as well. And also the heart. When I say the heart, I mean the spiritual heart. Your heart breaks when you lose someone. So I call it the spiritual heart. So it's working with that, and I work with the lung, the physical, the lungs. Everything's often, grief is stuck in the lungs. Mm-hmm. I felt that, I dealt a lot of grief stuff for myself, and I thought I was okay. And then I found that I wasn't okay. I still had this stuff stuck in the lungs. So it's a process. It took me on average about 2 years. And I would say now I'm 5 years down the road with everything that I've done and all the rest of it. And I have a different understanding of, if you like, of death, because death is not the end. But at that time, even when you're going through something, you can't see the wood for the trees. It's just the total pain that you go through, and people deal with things in different ways. To be able to get that out and not to hold that in, to get it out and to say what you think, to even to scream, to cry, whatever it is, nurture yourself. And as I say, right at the end, I used vortex healing for myself, which helped with meditations, and I also used the angelic. I work also with the angelic realm. Vortex healing has the angelic consciousness channeling through it also, but specifically, I also work with various archangels also, and I work with Archangel Azrael, that's Azrael, and who works with people who are about to leave their bodies, their physical bodies, and also helps people also with the grieving process afterwards. So I work with Archangel Azrael. And then it took time of just nurturing and crying and not wanting to talk to people and going within and, however it manifests. And then eventually, I still wasn't over it totally. So what I did, mediumship came into my life, and I had a lot of messages from my father. And that's the final thing that I got, final closure for me personally, and that's what made me study mediumship too. It's no coincidence how things happen, how they unfold. I mean, if you'd have said to me years ago that's what I would be doing, or that's how things would manifest, you just don't know how things change and grow. It's like a snake shedding its skin. The old conditioning, the old way of looking, you take yourself with you wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter where or what. The essence of you is still the same. It's just the old skin, the old way of thinking that changes. That's all it is, basically.
So as in medium, what were the messages your father said to you from wherever he was?
I've had many, many messages. I've had many messages, actually.
How did they come to you? How did they come to you?
Well, no, I had a professional. I started to study mediumship here, actually, in Atlanta at one stage. And then through that, I was getting messages through. We were doing practice runs and stuff like that. And it was incredible. I just, you just cry and cry and cry. It's a release and a release. And any good medium will give you evidence. It's not just saying, here's your father, I love you type of thing. It could be anything. You have to have proof of evidence, basically, to be a good medium. I also I've been training also in Arthur Findlay College, Spiritualist College in England, which is like the equivalent of the Harvard of mediumship schools, which is amazing. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I've had messages there from my mother. My mother's in spirit now also. And I've had messages that have come through for me there as well. So that through this, I'm able to help people as well as helping myself. So I don't feel sad anymore. We feel sad. It's the sadness. It's because when somebody leaves their physical body, they're okay. They're okay with it. They're not suffering or in pain anymore. Whether it's a human or whether it's an animal, they're not suffering. It's we're the ones, we the human beings that suffer, that find it's so difficult to deal with it. This is the problem. And so on average, I would say it takes about 2 years to deal with it on a year, 2 years probably, with different ways of stuff. And whatever one is drawn to is fine. There's no right way or wrong way. And again, when I work with pets, I deal with it in a different way also.
Well, I have a question for you. Before we take a break and switch to pets, my question is, as you know, there's been a lot of media attention to Brittany Maynard, who chose to die.
Right.
Death with dignity, because she was suffering with What are your thoughts on that?
I feel everybody has to have their own choice. We should not judge. As human beings, we judge. Who are we to judge? Until you're stuck in a position, until your back's to the wall, anybody, any of us, you just don't know how you're going to react. So for people that say she's wrong, she's this wrong, and it's religion or whatever it is, it's not about religion. It's about how you feel in yourself. And if this is your choice, that's fine. That's okay, because she chose to do it in a beautiful way for her. The prognosis, it wasn't a diagnosis, it was a prognosis. She didn't want to suffer. She didn't want to. No, I think it's fine, but she chose to do what she wanted to do for her. And that's fine. We all have choices as human beings. You can do the right way or the left way, whatever you choose to do.
Well, it was interesting because I wrote about it in my article appeared on Huffington Post, and I got a very passionate letter from somebody who said, my father is lingering and suffering, and he's determined to get past this. And you, by saying that what Brittany decided was eloquent and beautiful, you're making it sound like my father's doing something that's wrong. And I wrote him back and said, no, not really. It's a personal choice.
Yes,
and that
definitely.
Your father's decision to face it and believe that things could change and defy the odds is equally beautiful than a decision to accept them and say, I don't want to suffer. It's a personal choice. And there's really no right or wrong answer. It's the right answer for you, wouldn't you say? I mean,
exactly, definitely, 100%, 100%. It's whatever feels right for you at a core level. We should not judge. There's no right. Who are we to judge? But people do. People think they know best. But I saw the stuff on Facebook about it as well. It's my viewpoint. Don't judge till you're in the situation. How can you?
Yeah.
It's easy to pontificate, as they say.
Yeah, well, everybody has a pontificate. And what would you say, well, I mean, I hate to bring this up because it's so upsetting. I mean, I can't stand watching the news now, Philippa. I turn on the news and it's like yet another beheading. What would you say as a healer to the parents of this, humanitarian man that was beheaded? I mean, how do you help them heal?
On that level, it's again, you don't know how somebody's feeling when you've lost somebody in those dire circumstances. It's the same as, been murdered, obviously. So it's the same thing. How do you? And it's in the public. It's in the public eye. This is the point. Everybody knows it's looking at the reasons of the people of why they've done this. But in the end, how do you get over the grieving? It's the same process, basically. It's whether you. What is it about forgiveness? How can you forgive you can't. You have to sort of let go. If one holds on to all this stuff, it'll eat you up. You'll end up dying out of it, or you'll end up being in such a state you can get ill, and then it affects your whole life. Everything eats you up inside. It's not worth it. You have to go through the grieving process and the whys and the whats and the how. Whoever was out there, all those people are out there. They chose to go out there. Did they think that was going to happen? No, they didn't, not consciously anyway. You could say then instead of soul contract set up beforehand, that's a whole different ballgame I won't get into here. Mm-hmm. But, basically for the grieving process, it's the same. It's probably, you can't say it's worse because everybody grieves. You can't say my grief is worse than your grief. You can't because everybody grieves.
Yeah.
And however we get help with it, we get help on any level that one needs, whether it's through what one believes in, through however you do it.
Yeah, it's just amazing. We're going to do a quick break. I'll do a little bit of promo, and then I'm going to bring you back, okay? And I'll call you in.
Okay.
We're talking to Philippa Kingsley, who is a very brilliant healer. She's a vortex healing specialist. She's also a medium, and she's an animal communication specialist. So when we come back, we're going to talk about communicating with your animals, and I know I have some issues with my dog Sazerac. But first, I want to do a few promotional plugs. This show is Fearless Fabulous You. I am Melanie. I'm your host. You can find us on demand at iHeart.com on iHeartRadio all over the world, and we are at W4WN Radio. If you want information on advertising or being a guest, please email me at Melanie Young, MELANIEYOU, Melanie, MELANIE at MelanieYoung.com. I also want to say that I am author of 2 books, Getting Things Off My Chest, A Survivor's Guide to Staying Fearless and Fabulous in the Face of Breast Cancer, which I am very proud to announce won its 2nd National Book Award this past week, the USA Best Book Award. It's a big honor. It was my first book, so I couldn't be prouder to write a book that has been recognized, but more importantly, has helped a lot of women face their breast cancer diagnosis and make smarter, more confident decisions about their treatment and how to look and feel their best. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books of Things, and CureDiva.com. And then, talk about a great week. My 2nd book came out this week as well, Fearless Fabulous You, Lessons on Living Life on Your Terms, which is a motivational book which actually deals with the healing journey when you face a setback in your life, which is what Philip and I are talking about. That book is now available also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Cure Diva and others, and it's only like $12.99, so it's a slim, tiny book packed with a powerful message, and I encourage everybody to buy it for anyone. I mean, absolutely anyone who's facing a change in their life, needs a little lift, and feels stuck. My messages are how to unstick your life. and I will be going on book tour to promote it. And so if you want to find out more, you can go to my website, melanieyoung.com, MELANIEYOUNG. And lastly, my gorgeous husband, David Ransom, and I host a radio show on Wednesdays on the flip side about food and beverage called The Connected Table Live. It's Wednesdays on W4CY.com at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And our guest this week will be a very talented cookbook author, Rick Rogers. He wrote the Big Book of Sides, and we're cooking through these Big Book of Sides because I love sides, particularly the veggie ones. And our second guest will be Franck Duboeuf of the very famous Beaujolais house, Le Vin Georges Duboeuf, because next week is Beaujolais Nouveau Week, big week in the wine world. So I hope you'll join us Wednesday at 2 p.m. on the Connected Table Live on W4CY and iHeart. So those are my plugs for the week. I want to welcome back Philippa Kingsley. We're going to actually change the tone of our talk and talk about animals. We talked about grieving, so I'm getting sad, but I have a glass of wine, so I'm not. So we're going to talk about animals. Philippa, I have a new dog. You chose not to adopt after Vogie and Cosmo passed, right?
Right.
Why was that?
Sorry, go on.
Why was that? Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting. It's on, I would say, first of all, it's on a higher level. Because I'm such a dogaholic, which I call myself.
Dogaholic.
I'm a dogaholic, I am.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I like cats too. I like all animals, actually, whether they're furry, feathered, four-legged, or two-legged. But anyway, it was something on a higher level. I had a lot of other, if you like, work to do. Because when I had Vogie and Cosmo, I was totally in full throttle, as I said earlier, mummy mode. Gave up my life for them, literally. And I was cooking for them. Organic food, of course, the whole thing.
I know they had organic food. Instead of dog food, they had organic food.
Oh, yeah, proper food. I'd cook everything. Now I would do a raw food diet if I had dogs. But anyway, that's what I was doing at that time. Mm. But anyway, and it's just not meant to be because I'm away a lot. I'm traveling a lot. But, I love animals. And it's with Vogie and Cosmo, guided me to the animal communicator that I trained with, which I truly believe on that level. Mm-hmm. And then also through that, various, I look after various clients' animals. I don't advertise it consciously. I don't have lots and lots of animals. I'll only take one animal at a time or one family of animals at a time, dogs at a time, basically. So they get 5-star treatment, basically. And I have a revolving client list of animals that come and dogs that come and stay here.
But I wish you were up here because we live outside of New York, and we have this. And we're going to talk about So I ended up adopting. I swore I was not going to have another dog. I was so busy grieving, and then I started going on Maltese rescue sites and Pet Finder, and there's this one in Chattanooga, Tennessee, just up the street from Atlanta, called Southern Comfort Maltese Rescue. Southern Comfort, like the alcohol. And it's really funny because all the dogs have liquor names. So there was this one called Captain Morgan. And I'm like, David, look at this dog. He's so cute. I mean, he really was just 3 pounds of cuteness. And his name is Captain Morgan. And I suddenly, I was pitter-pattering, even though I have I've shrined a Chance in my bedroom, and I was wearing his collar around my wrist like a bracelet.
Right.
So I flew to Chattanooga, and I was interviewed. I was pre-screened. They really did a great job, Southern Comfort, and they only do Maltese, and I grew up with Maltese. This little creature was just the cutest thing I've ever seen. I mean, cute in a different way from Chance, but just a pisser. Supposedly from, quote, a breeder. Later we found out when we took him for his first grooming that he was from a puppy mill because he had that concentration camp number in his ear.
Oh, yeah.
But Philippa, he has a lot of issues. And we're trying to work through them. And one of them was I think he has agoraphobia. And I think it's because he lived in a cage.
Yeah, not
and
surprising.
He wants to run away all the time.
Okay. I work with animals that have behavioral issues. That's what I specialize in, basically. Animals that have come from, whether it's a puppy mill or these are the rescues, whatever it is, they've been adopted into a loving background, into a loving home, and everyone wants to welcome them. And they see they're in a loving environment. But the thing is, it's the same thing. All their issues are still stuck there. especially if a dog's been in a puppy mill on top of it. They didn't bond at that time. Even though you adore him and he adores you, all this stuff is stuck in the cellular system. So that's the level of what I do when I work with animals like that. I use animal communication, and then I also use vortex healing into the cellular system. And usually it works after one session, maybe 2 sessions with animals, because I would say they're far less complicated than humans, quite honestly.
Well, yeah. So
they're a bundle of unconditional love.
What would you do if you were adopting a dog, and most likely sadly, most likely if they're rescued, they're from puppy mills or they've been abused. Listen, if they're in a shelter, they've been abused, they've been abandoned, or they're in a mill. So they definitely have been psychologically damaged. What is the first thing, like, to prepare? I mean, I know what we did, but how would you advise listeners to properly prepare your home and get this this innocent creature into the home to feel better and help them work through their issues, because they all have issues.
And it's also as a family.
Yeah.
It's also as a family working together, because some people say, oh, it's the dog, and it's not you, obviously, Melanie, but the dog's this, the dog's that. And it's a question of everybody working together for the common good of, your lives together, which is going to be pure love. And I would say literally get some help. And I would love to help you, Melanie, with this. I work with distance, but obviously I'd love to do this in person, but I work with distance. Any vortex healing works with distance. All I would need is a photograph, and that's how I work.
Well, are there certain things that you should, if you were bringing, like, if you were wherever we are, is there certain things you should think about when you prepare the home for the dog, for example, or certain signs you should look for in their behavior?
Not really. I wouldn't say there's different signs. There's different signs with dogs, that have issues that come into the home. Sometimes they can be very timid, and if obviously the first night, obviously it's not surprising, timid, or sometimes it could be aggressive. It could be aggressive behavior. It could also be feeling abandoned, wanting to stay with you all the time, not wanting to leave, not wanting to be totally connected to you all the time, just being totally by your side. There's so many different ways of that, and it's a question how one deals with that. And it's not a question of, right, wave the magic wand, it's all going to be okay. It's working through that. And as a loving mother, which you are, you can talk to your dog yourself. You connect and bond with them, the bonding, and taking time out from running around and doing this, just to sit down and have quiet time together. And it's about telepathic communication. It's actually about love. That's really, I
think people don't realize that. I think a lot of people don't realize that they have to communicate with their dog like they communicate with their spouse. But I will tell you, Sazerac is his name. We changed it from Captain Morgan to Sazerac because we don't care about Captain Morgan. He lay around, it's weird. He's nocturnal. And we're not sure why, but he's very energetic late at night. You can hear him running back and forth, pacing. And then he'll sleep in a bed all day. I mean, we're not really.
But if you think about it,
what's that all about?
Yeah, right. Well, if you think about it, whether it's he's nocturnal. Humans are nocturnal. Okay. Some people are more nocturnal than others. You may not be, but I am actually. I don't sleep in bed all day, mind you. But anyway, it's just a chemistry balance of things. But it's looking at, that's when his energy is best. And the other thing I would say is it's important to take dogs. I'm sure you do. Take him for a walk.
No.
You take him for a walk? No.
No, because he has agoraphobia. He has a fear of open spaces. When he goes out in large spaces, he gets very upset.
Right.
And also he gets very upset when he gets in a car. Oh my God, it's just a nightmare. He's a nightmare in a car. He just starts shaking. And I know many friends who do that, and we don't know why that is.
It's obviously it's fear. All of this is totally fear.
Oh, right, but we don't know what triggered it.
Yeah. But being, first of all, being in a, he was in a foster home or a shelter initially.
Well, we believe he was in a puppy mill because when he was groomed, the groomer said, "Did you notice the numbers that were tattooed in his ear?" And he has no front teeth. And so what we've learned from that is that he grew up in a puppy mill. He has no front teeth because we were told that when they're in a puppy mill, they chew their cage.
Right.
And we don't know his age.
Right. Okay.
But unlike Chance, we think Chance was just simply abandoned. They each have different personalities, but this one is less affectionate. He's less affectionate.
Which is not surprising because he's got fear and he also had to survive.
Right.
It was survival of the fittest. If you think about it, it was survival of the fittest. Like saying, imagine how you would feel if you were in that situation.
Well, I just can't. I think puppy mills are just some of the most evil things out there.
Oh, they're horrendous.
Yeah.
Totally horrendous. Totally unbelievable.
Do you work with many dogs that come from puppy mills?
Yes, I do. And dogs that have been abandoned. As I say, they come from shelters.
What are some examples? We have about 5 minutes, by the way. What are some things that you would do to help them? And more importantly, what can owners do to help their dogs? And we're talking dogs adjust and heal, because that's really the issue. Is not everybody can have you, but what can we do as better dog parents?
As dog parents, literally try and just hold him, cuddle him, and talk to him. Mm-hmm. Spend time with him. He to break the pattern of, obviously he's got agoraphobia, but he still has to go out to have a walk, because exercise, there's love, there's energy, and to have a walk is good to get over that fear, that hump. Even if it's and rather than taking out to a great big walk to enormous big space, it must do it slowly, like little steps. That's the most important thing. And keep talking to him. But I'd also say he definitely needs some work, obviously, at the cellular system. He truly does, to help him to get over his fear and to know that he's truly loved. He can see he's in a beautiful environment, but all this stuff is stuck in his cellular system. And it's fear and it's pain and all the life that he led. And also not having a bond, not having an initial bond. It was literally, having to survive. It was survival. That's where it was, totally.
And I think people need to understand that. And I truly believe, and we have somebody on who's an adoption specialist in January. If you're thinking about giving a dog for the holidays or adopting a dog, think very hard about it. I mean, it's a commitment as much as you're having a child. It's not something you can go, I'm going to return it. It's not right. The animals have emotions. All
animals have emotions. They have happy, they're fear, they have everything. It doesn't matter whether it's a farm animal. All animals have emotions and feelings.
Right. And they know when you're abandoning them. They know it.
Yes, they know. It's instinct. Animals literally have higher trained instincts than many humans, actually. It's just that humans tend to think they're above animals, which we're not. So basically, don't adopt. Obviously for the holidays, that's the worst thing to do. It's having a dog is a commitment. It's a lifetime of commitment. You're going to know for 12 years you're there. Who's going to look after the dog? Who's going to be the main control person? Who's looking after the dog in the family? Who's going to take the dog for walks? And what's going to happen when you go away? All these things, everything. It's really, really important. People don't think it out. They just think, it's a little fluffy little, puppy. It's lovely. And then sometimes they don't like it. The dog, it's not a fluffy puppy. It becomes full grown.
Well, it's kind of like when you have a baby and you go, I like babies. I love having babies. And suddenly they become teenagers and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's not about just being a puppy or a baby. It's about growing up and growing old. And at one point, your kid's going to be rebellious and your dog is going to be very old and blind and feeble. And you have to be prepared for that the same way you are with your parents.
Totally.
We have about 2 minutes, or actually a minute to wrap up. First of all, let's get to the basics. How can people find you and connect with you if they want to learn more about your healing program?
Okay, my website is healingpeopleandpets.com, www.healingpeopleandpets.com. You can also reach out to me on Facebook under Philippa Kingsley, and it's PHILIPPA, 1 L and 2 P's. And also I have another Facebook page, which is Healing People and Pets. Those are the best places. I'm also on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. But probably Facebook and my website, if you really want to know more, my website, healingpeopleandpets.com.
And that's where you can also buy your book and sign up for some of your programs. I know you do lectures as well. And you work with people all around the country. People can Skype in or what?
They can Skype in or they can fly me out to wherever they want to go to. I'll do that as well. Whatever it is, not a problem. Communication's easy these days.
I agree. And my feeling is if anybody's out there is first of all, if you're thinking about adopting a dog, think very long and hard about the commitment you're about to make. It is a beautiful thing to adopt a dog from a shelter, and I encourage it, but make sure you're ready to make the commitment. This is a real commitment. And if you're dealing with a dog that is elderly and facing the last part of his life, please do not decide it's time to let the dog go. You don't do that to your parents. You don't do that to your grandparents, and you're not going to do that to your husband. So don't do it to your dog. I do have to, it is time to wrap. We're talking to Philippa Kingsley. Her book is Rising Above Grief for People and Pets, www.healingpeopleandpets.com. I want to thank you very much for being on the show. God bless you, and I hope you have a healing, happy holiday.
Thank you. Much love and light to you, Melanie. Thank you very much.
Love and light to you. Thank you very much.